Oh, it's taking ages to publish. Hey, you guys, and welcome to the Steele Wars Hypernews for Friday evening, September 21st, if you are in America or that sort of place. Good morning to our Australian and Australasian listeners, and what's up to everyone staying up late in Europe? It's a tough call. That's a tough call. We are going to be discussing the day's Star Wars news with my very esteemed guest. Welcome from the Blue Harvest and the Rogue One podcast. It's my buddy Hawes Burkhardt. How you doing, Hawes?
I'm doing pretty well, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing real good. We just had a minor technical difficulty there, but we've snafu'd it up. And we're up to chat some Star Wars for the next half hour or so, maybe a little bit longer. But we would love to hear from you. And if you want to call in, the number is 646-668-8360. We've already got one person on the line, and we'll get to them quick smart. I am just putting the phone number in the chat, where we love to have people hang out. Seth Owens in there. He's raring to go as normal, and we are set. Hey, Hawes, I was just doing some, I've been doing some domestic work today, preparing the house for our little boy, and I was doing some vacuuming. Now, what point is the half suck on the vacuum? Who doesn't want full suckage?
I don't quite. I wonder that too. Like,
I don't want all the dust.
What's the purpose? You want half clean? Yeah, you want just half the dust and dirt left?
Came out, a vacuum company, regardless of the quality of the vacuum, but they just had one setting. Like, just, it was just set to 10. Then I'd respect it because they're being honest with me. And much like I hope, awesome segue, our listeners respect us for being honest with them today with our views about Star Wars. What do you think about that, Hawes? Good segue?
Good segue.
Thank you. It's interesting. Kieran Dodrell, who's a regular listener or viewer of the video and the podcast, he was a little bit upset. The last couple of guests on the Hypernews weren't pro Solo. They maybe a little bit angsty about it. But I don't really find out what people think about the films before I book them on the show. But where are you sitting at with Solo? You've had a few days to catch the digital release. Where are you sitting?
I actually really like it. I find it pretty fun. Is it my favorite of the sort of Disney era Star Wars movies? No, but I still enjoy it. There's still a lot to like in it.
Yeah, I put up a poll actually. I'll just get this up on the big screen here. And the first one was, which we sort of talked about a little bit the other day, was the your Star Wars A Story purchasing strategy. And we ended up with 19% going for digital, 13% saying they're getting them both. We had 3% saying that they were trying to hold out for the Blu-ray, but cracked under the pressure of social media blabbering. And we've got 65% of people that are holding out for the Blu-ray. Where did you sit in that one, Hawes?
Well, obviously I got it on digital, but I'll be getting the 4K disc when it comes out too. I'm a sucker. I've done it for all the new movies so far.
A double dipper.
See this being different.
A double dipper.
Yeah, they get me with that double dip. It's a shady practice of putting that digital version out a week and a half, 2 weeks before the physical release, and I realize it's shady, but it doesn't stop me from falling for it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like it's not unfair, but I'm not sure if it's fair. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's
right. I know exactly what you mean.
it's just it's not dodgy because you're saying like you're setting out the rules, but I don't know. Okay, I don't know if it's the coolest thing to do. You know what I mean?
Oh, I absolutely agree. Mainly because I'm a sucker and I fall for it every time.
Yeah, and but that is a definite Disney pattern, and we're going to be talking about Bob Iger in a little bit and his recent comments in the Hollywood Reporter. But I just put this poll up, Hawes, which is I like it. I'm a fan of this topic. It's I'm not sure if you saw this one yet, Hawes, but which pre-reshoot Star Wars footage would you most like to check out cut back into their movie? Now, my options are A New Hope, because there was that sort of the pre Marshall Lucas cut with all that weird reprojection land speeder action. There was The Force Awakens, where I'm not sure if you remember back, Hawes, there was they reshot a lot of Finn and Rey stuff after Harrison got injured, and they didn't really think the chemistry was right there. We've got Rogue One, of course, very famous. The you've got all the running in front of the AT-AT business. You've got more Krennic. You've got Krennic walking through a puddle. And then Solo with all the Chris Miller and Phil Lord action. Which one would you pick, and which one do you think will be the most popular?
So I've been thinking about this since I saw your poll. I know for sure the one that I don't want to see is The Force Awakens, because the fact that there's so much stuff from Leia on the cutting room floor is what is leading us to get Leia in Episode 9. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that stuff didn't make it into the movie, because now we get more Carrie Fisher without having to do like some sort of weird shenanigans. Honestly, though, like it's tough. Like I would love to see that original cut of A New Hope, the one that was apparently real bad. I would like to see the Phil Lord and Christopher Miller stuff from Solo, even though it apparently also was really bad. But honestly, I think out of those options, Rogue One might want to be it, because I want to see the context of all those trailer scenes that we never saw in the final movie.
Just Mendo's cape in the water. Yes.
I know. The cape in the water, the running from the AT-ATs, the TIE fighter scene that was all over the trailer. There's a lot of stuff.
Well, the TIE fighter scene apparently was never meant to be in it. It was just part of their fun.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it is weird that they CGI'd it, though. That's strange.
And then...
don't you think... Wait, I've never thought about that. Like, it was never... Like, the marketing people said, we're going to use it. But if it was never meant to be in the film, why'd they do the graphics for it?
Yeah, exactly. Was it maybe some sort of animatic that the marketing people liked so much that they asked them to finish it?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, were they looking at early stuff and were like, oh, that would be cool in a trailer. Can you finish that one shot for us? I don't really know how that works.
Yeah. It's a little bit curious. Hey, just to get a bit of business out there, make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you're watching live on YouTube. I think we're trying to do 2 of these a week at the moment, and I'm tossing up doing Mondays and Thursdays or Tuesdays and Fridays. So if people have an opinion on that, I'm not sure if people are busy Friday nights or what, Hawes. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if they've all got like as much free time as seemingly we do. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, and also we've got a Patreon, which me and Hawes do a really fun show. Tell us about our new little show, Hawes.
So our show is Star Wars Year by Podcast, and it is us examining the Star Wars Year by Year book. We're using the 2016 revised and expanded edition. It's got like a black and gold Kylo Ren slipcover to it. So if you guys are interested in picking up the book to go along with the show, that's the one you want to get. And we're sort of just examining the history of Star Wars and leading into Star Wars and everything from, films and movies and books and things that influence Star Wars to the political climate and the art world leading into Star Wars. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And at the moment, we've just done the first episode, which takes us from, what was it, 1917 to 1969 until it starts breaking off into single years. But we've got that up it's about 2 hours of audio, or also we've got enhanced video. Did you check out the video version, Hawes?
I did. I was quite impressed with your Marshall Lucas editing skills, my man.
Thank you. That's quite a compliment and a pretty deep dive Star Wars reference. So you've really won out there. I was just listening before we got going to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, which is one of my fave weekly news shows, and Dom was saying that on all the extras, even visually, there's not a hint of Miller and Lord. Like, not a Skerrick.
I don't know. See, this is definitely one of those cases. The further we get into the Disney era of Star Wars, where I really wish they were a little more forthcoming and allowed like the Rensler making of book type of thing to happen, because man, would that book be a fascinating read about the making of Solo. And I don't really know. Like, there was one deleted scene that I was like, oh, that has to be Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. But then my co-host on Blue Harvest, Will, pointed out, well, it can't be because Paul Bettany is in that scene.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And obviously he was brought on, by Ron Howard.
Yeah, like I really appreciated John Kasdan, and we sort of went through these on a couple of episodes ago, his 52 or 53 writer's notes about Solo, and he did credit those guys a fair bit, Chris Miller and Phil Lord. But I actually had a Twitter conversation with him as well about not doing a commentary, and he was like, oh, I would have loved to, but we just never got offered it from the people that put together the Blu-rays. So it seemed like the creators, or those guys, seemed a bit more forthcoming to discuss it than the corporate boxed up package sort of thing. But you got to think, Hawes, a little documentary with a few warts in it, that would have moved a few units. Like that like,
oh, for sure. And it seems like just now, in the last few months, we've started to get a little bit of information from people that worked on Rogue One. Remember, was it who was the guy they brought on to film the reshoots for Rogue One? I keep forgetting his name.
I wiped it after he was
Tony Gilroy.
Yeah, he was so dismissive. It was like, because he did that podcast, and like he was just being honest, but it hurt. Do you know what I mean? He was just like, yeah, it's just a film. I just had to go in and fix it. But I was like, do you know what I mean? Is that, sometimes I sort of mock the pandering. I'm such a fan and all that in all the licensee promo material. But to get the other end of it, where it's just like, check, did it. It's like, oh, you've hurt me. I need a little bit of pandering, please.
Oh yeah, I mean, see, that's where we would run into, I guess, a little of the danger of these J.W. Rensler type deep dive making of a couple of these movies, where if it's warts and all, some of the warts are going to be quite unattractive.
They're my favorite warts, though. Bring it on.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe 20 years down the line, like with the Rensler books or so, we'll start getting that kind of information. But they seem awfully tight-lipped, especially considering he was working on one for The Force Awakens, and then something went down.
Alrighty. Also, we've got a few people on hold. If you can also just call in just to listen to the show, but if you want to chat, press 1 on your keypad, and that will signal to me that you have something to discuss. And won't that be fun? Now, I don't know why I just said that. we've got someone that's in. Let's go to 4477. Quite a strange number, but who are you and where you're calling from?
Hey, Steele, it's Josh Chapman speaking.
Chapman,
Hey.
how you doing, man?
Hey, good. How's it going?
It's going really nice. Josh, that does a lot of our.
Hey, Hawes. How you going, buddy?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
You're talking over my.
Your episode with Steele about Star Wars tacos.
What's going on? I'm trying to introduce you, and you're talking over your introduction. Like, these years of listening to my podcast, have you not picked up any, like, just a skerrick of my very average media training? Josh does a lot of videos for us, and that's the sort of thing I'd ask him to edit out. Which is ironic. But he's from the Star Wars Spelt Out podcast and YouTube. What's on your mind today, Josh?
I was just talking about the stuff that's cut out, and I'm actually leaning towards Force Awakens because wasn't the original, like before they reshot a bunch of stuff, it was more sort of hinted that Rey was Han's kid. So I just sort of like to see that just because of the implications that it would have had.
This is why we take callers, Hawes. You know, I am, I'm quite fascinated with what things are hidden in the cutting room floor. I tell you, Josh, you may have changed me. I didn't even say I was Rogue One, but I'm changing. You flipped me, Josh. I'm going to go for the Force. I'm just going for the
all the other stuff's cool, but
The Force Awakens, just for this, they reshot the Bespin lightsaber scene for the Force back.
That is very true.
Now,
that's why I've got a Bespin Luke Force Awakens doll.
That is right. That is very right. Their figures, Josh. Come on, mate. Come on. Let's not girl it up too much here, mate. Jesus.
I've got a 3-year-old girl in the house.
Another cool element from The Force Awakens that was cut was actually seeing Maz use the Force, which would have been pretty neat.
I didn't know that.
Was that in the?
Was
that in a deleted scene? That was in the deleted scene.
Yeah, she uses the Force to pull some rocks down on some stormtroopers.
Do you know the deleted scene?
Like in the right, yeah.
The deleted scene I'd like to see is someone saying goodbye to Maz.
Right?
They just bail because originally she was going to come on the trip, and I don't know, they didn't put in another scene, but you know how George Lucas has got that thing where he edited in him like Darth Vader leaving Cloud City just because I don't know it bugged him. It was never shown how he got back to the Star Destroyer. J.J. Abrams in 20 years needs to edit in some averagely CGI'd goodbye scene from.
Give her her jetpack.
All right, that's about enough from you, Josh. That Maz Kanata jetpack is.
Speaking of,
you've got Boba Fett and Jango. They've got jetpacks. Just leave it there. I'm trying to think of a jetpack apart from that has worked out for me because I sure didn't like R2-D2s.
Speaking of Maz and her jetpack, Steele, you know how you've been saying you like to collect merchandise of things that bother you in Star Wars, like you have, the SH Big Arts of C-3PO on the droid body.
Mm-hmm.
I saw today the holographic Maz with jetpack figure, and I was like, "Oh, that's a Steele Saunders special right there."
The reject shop in Australia are clearing out all the Last Jedi figures now for $5. So I picked up a bunch of those, all the 3 3/4 inch ones. But I left the R2 one on the peg because it had the little jetpack fires on the side of the legs. I'm like, don't like
that. Josh, anything else on your mind, buddy?
Nah, it's all good, guys. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you all at Celebration.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy Saturday morning in Australia. Hey, just got another little plug. We have got a t-shirt sale at the moment, Hawes. My pre-baby t-shirt sale at Mercho Store. And if you put in code BABY, you you get 33% off all the Steele Wars t-shirts. So, the content tee, the shill, the Your Snoke Theory Sucked, and the Yavin tee that I'm wearing now that A. Reinhardt in the chat was just marveling at. He was giving me a little bit of a compliment, or he was making fun of it. One of the two. He did mention it, Hawes. Thus, I'm going to sizzle it, and there'll be a link in the show notes if you want to go directly to Mercho Store and get 33% off. It means t-shirts are about $14.50. Now, Hawes, what did you check out this Variety article with Bob Iger? Bobby I, as I like to call him. Now, I'm not sure if you've got, this is in the Hollywood Reporter, and I just have to put this up straight away. And A. Reinhardt has just said he digs the t-shirt. So get buying, buddy. Get buying. But I'm not sure if you can see this yet, Hawes, on the YouTube screen, as it takes a few seconds to catch up. But the Hollywood Reporter did this interview with Bob Iger. They also did this beautiful drawing of him at the top of it. Can you see this now on YouTube?
I can't see it yet, but I have seen it, and it is real nice.
Like Jason and I did a Patreon episode yesterday, and we were just like, is this Iger money? Like, it looks like art from like a note, like an American note. And this is a guy that knows a lot about American notes. I've heard.
Boy, does he!
He owns a couple of them. So that's exciting.
He's been to quite a few of them too in his tenure at Disney.
Yes, he definitely has. Now, what did you check out the Bob Iger interview?
I did. I thought it was fairly interesting. I'm a fan of the Marvel stuff too. So besides the Star Wars, it was also neat to hear how they're going to approach sort of the future of Marvel with the Fox buyout as well.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, in the news, the trades are reporting, there's a Scarlet Witch and a Loki. Are they separate Marvel TV shows that are going to be on the Disney streaming service? They're like separate shows. They're not in the same show together.
Right, and that is, that was reported by Variety, but not confirmed by Marvel or Disney yet. But from what I understand, those are separate shows.
Because it was interesting, that got a lot of people talking, what the Star Wars ones are going to be. And it's like, it's already announced. It's the Jon Favreau thing. It's like,
right.
You know that's coming. And, it looks like they're going to be doing Mandalorians a couple of years after Return of the Jedi. Oh, man. The froth is real. The froth is real on that one. I did. Me and Jason went into this pretty heavily on the Patreon episode of Making Steele Wars yesterday, so I won't go too heavily into it. But he takes the blame for the timing of Solo, and it was crazy from the onset to like give up that Christmas position. Like, it was perfect. And I was thinking about it, that like having it then when people are heading back home, like that generates way more people to go see it just out of the tradition. Like I know people that just in 3 years, they're like our friend Chris Fresh, big fan of Christmas from the Geek Dudes podcast down in Melbourne. He, it was part of his Christmas tradition now was to get all the family and go see Star Wars. But that wouldn't be the first time you've seen it. That was the genius of bringing it out on like the 14th, the 16th. You cop it a couple times, and then when you're back at Christmas with your family, you're like, hey, let's go see it again. And then you drag in like, at least 1 to 6 people. I don't know how big your family is. I don't know if you're more Different Strokes or what was the other one? The Brady Bunch. These references. I guess we are talking about a film from 40 years ago. So what are we talking about? But you miss that family double dip.
Yeah, and from my personal experience, this was the first Star Wars movie that I didn't see in the theaters with my dad, because I was always home around Christmas time. My dad's a big Star Wars fan, and we'd always go check it out on Christmas Day after dinner and stuff. So, just personal experience, it threw a wrench into that.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to do it with I normally go with my mom, but I'm normally only back there at Christmas in Australia, so I didn't get to do that. And I normally take my niece and my two nieces. So there's 4 tickets, because I would have bought a ticket as well, because that's the sort of person I am. Law abiding. Hey, let's take another call, and we've got Patreon supporter and also behind the scenes technician. We've got Rashad from Will Communication on the line. What's going on, buddy?
They want a wanga.
No characters, buddy. No
How
characters.
You doing, guys?
What's on your mind today, Rashad?
What's going on? Well, other than missing the two of you, while we're on the subject of Bobby, I've been thinking a lot, and there's a lot of conversation, going around because of what he said about maybe he did a little too much too fast Star Wars. And I was just curious, in an ideal world, let's say Disney makes a Star Wars film until the end of time, what would be your ideal kind of release schedule per film? Are you one a year, one every few years, multiple ones per year? Like, what do you think?
I bet you I know Steele's answer for this, but my answer is 1 year. 1 a year is good for me.
All right, I'm gonna cheat with my answer, Rashad, and I appreciate the question. I'm gonna go 1 a year, Christmas, but then a Disney streaming special event every May the 4th.
Ooh.
Yeah, see, that would be rad, wouldn't it? You still get that, like, Star Wars May release area, like, because, for some reason, I remember when they announced, The Force Awakens was getting moved from May 2015 to December 2015. People were like, well, that ruins it. Star Wars was supposed to be in May. But I don't know, man. I like the December release date for it.
Yeah, that was always
too.
a really weird thing, because in Australia, like being in May, it meant nothing. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not like, I know it's the start of the summer here, but in Australia it was just like, yeah, it's raining a bit then, and it's like an odd time in the year. It's not halfway through the year. It's not a third. It's 5/12s. I've broke it down for you right there.
Yeah.
There's the math. But yeah, the Christmas thing was so like fun, and I don't know. It was a real good vibe to have it around Christmas. You were sort of just like, you were already happier, and then Star Wars. Yes.
Yeah, and just, around that time of year, like, I'm working a little less, so it's a lot easier for me to make time to go see a Star Wars movie a whole bunch in the theater. Like, I think Solo's probably the one I saw the least in the theater, and that was not a knock against its quality or how much I enjoyed it. It's just, how it sort of shakes out being busy during the summer.
Yeah, it was definitely the least I
I'm a big
saw of them.
proponent of Star Wars Christmas.
And A. Reinhardt is in the chat bemoaning that it's going to be a lonely Star Wars Christmas this year. Which
I agree.
Which it will. Hey, Rashad, which film do you want to see the bonus footage from? Cut back in the pre-reshoot footage.
Of all of them, probably Rogue One. Or it's tough between Rogue One and Solo. I want to say Rogue One, because I'm kind of interested to see what Gareth had in mind. Because I'm pretty happy with what we got in both of them, but I feel like Rogue One was a little more, I don't want to say inconsistent, but between Act 1 and Act 3, I think there's a lot of very different stuff going on. There's a whole lot of movie crammed into that. I'd be kind of interested to see what the full vision would have been. Start to finish.
What is that guy's name? The farmer. He's not. I can't remember his username. But he was telling me on Twitter today that it was such a hard choice. And the more I think about it, it does get like really, really hard, because just seeing like cut footage that I'd never seen before from Star Wars is like a time machine. Like, it's such a bizarre, like, even when you see like a photo, like a production photo you've never seen before, and you know, we've seen a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've stared at these photos for a long time. When you see one that you've never seen before, it's just like, wah! Like, it's such a bizarre sensation. I love it.
The fact that they had unused footage of Gold Leader and Red Leader to use in Rogue One still fascinates me.
That's
was
incredible.
That was a masterstroke.
That was a jaw-dropping moment for me.
I agree. One of the best decisions they made in that movie. Like, it was so neat.
What I tell you one thing that always niggles at me about Rogue One is that the rebellion weren't affirmative enough to go fight straight away. Like, it.
Yeah,
I sort of got.
To me,
I got that it had to be debate, but it's sort of. I don't know. It seemed the way they switch. Like, it's like when Rada said, "I say we fight," like that. I feel like he should have said that to end the debate,
right?
And then it wouldn't have been sort of. Yeah, I don't know. It just, I was always disappointed in the rebellion.
What were those naysayers even there for, if not to fight against the Empire? Like, you know what I mean? Are they just there to hang out in a cool club on a jungle planet? Like, no, man, you're there to fight the bad guys. Get to it.
I just wanted to meet Felicity Jones.
Like, they're subtweeting the Empire without actually adding them.
Rashad, I miss you, buddy. And we'll be working together again soon.
No problem.
And I'll talk to you then.
I can't wait.
Oh, do you want to sizzle
Good luck
some?
with the baby.
Do you want to sizzle your podcast? You got an interview on the new podcast.
Oh. Yeah, on Will Communication. The most recent episode, I interviewed Rodney Barnes, who's the author of the Lando Double or Nothing miniseries, the Marvel comic.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really fun episode, and I hope you all check it out. You can find us on Twitter at WillComPod.
Very nice. Some good, succinct sizzle. I'm very proud of you, Rashad. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Good luck with the baby.
Oh, thank you. Whew. Whew. All right, we've got one more call. We'll get that out of the way, and then we'll take this thing home. I think let's go to 570. Who are you and where are you calling from? $570, that's you. All right, I'll put you back on hold, and we just had another call. Let's go to 443. 443. All right, that worked out great. Good calls. Some very. If you are ready to talk on one of those lines, just hit 1. 443 is still there. The other, I don't know. It's such a trope. The frustrated call-in show operator. Like, one of my favorite podcasts, the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 podcast. Brian Alvarez is always getting frustrated with people not calling in properly, and like I'm thrilled I get to lead the same lifestyle. But 443 is telling me they're ready. 443, who are you and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's A. Reinhardt. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, it's A. Reinhardt. We can hear you okay. What's the A stand for, if you don't mind me inquiring on your personal life?
How's it going? Hey, listen, this news...
Hey, you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me what the A stands for.
Listen, it's very private. It stands for Aaron.
Okay.
So I'd rather not announce that to the world. It's very personal information.
All right.
But now it's out there, so thanks for that. So my question is, with the Bob Iger thing, are you guys nervous at all, or are you guys like, yeah, that was the right call? Like, I kind of think that it's a little late in the making the call we were all screaming for before, I'm a little nervous about the future of Star Wars. I know I shouldn't be. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I can't help but be a little like, oh, it's a little late to be on board with our thoughts now,
Yeah, I think, I see a lot of people saying that they think this means, they're going to move to every 2 years or an every 3 years type thing with Star Wars. And I don't really think that's the case. I do think it will be a while, if ever, that we see 6 months, 5 months in between Star Wars releases.
Good.
And a lot of times you hear people compare Lucasfilm and Star Wars to Marvel. Well, Marvel puts out 3 movies a year. Why can't Star Wars do that? But those same people, I feel like, forget that it took a while for Marvel to get up to that point. It took a while for Marvel to even get up to a movie a year. So I think, they really hit the ground running, and we're trying to do a whole lot with Star Wars with the once every year.
The thing with that, Hawes, is that, Marvel, they sort of started the pace pretty quick, and that's how we got used to it. But Star Wars fans get like too excited about every step of the process, like the toy release and celebration. And if we don't have the energy and enthusiasm, I think, as a whole, to be enthusiastic about 2 films a year. We'll still be pumped, but I think it would be like, oh, it's next week. Oh yeah, I'm not ready for it. Like that's how it was with Solo. I wasn't cracked into full hype, and it's because we invest so much energy in each movie because previously they've been so far apart. So every essence of it is so important to us, and as the films have sped up, we're still trying to milk the excitement for all it's worth with every point. So I just think the way that Star Wars fan culture's developed, it's quite different to the Marvel films, and for that, I think I guess he it's as I was talking about with Jason the other day, it's like 2 a year is too much, but I guess you got to test it out, because then the other way, you could do 1 every 2 years and it would be really successful, but are you making as much money overall if you brought out 3 mildly successful films over those 2 years? I'm fascinated with all those calculations, but I'm sure they've done it.
Right.
But
well, actually, I have a question about that.
Aaron, I'm
do
wondering.
You guys really think that?
I'm wondering, Aaron, what makes you nervous? What sort of part of it is?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So all of that, it's not the notion that it doesn't need to come out so quickly. I totally agree with that decision. Now, my concern was what was the delay on the wavelength? We're all on the same wavelength now. What took so long for Bob Iger? I mean, other than being interested in making some more money, I just was a little surprised as a business decision why he wouldn't have seen this coming.
Honestly, I think if you want my opinion, I think the performance of Solo was an eye opener, because if Solo had done Rogue One numbers, I guarantee you we would have seen that December May release thing happen again at some point.
Oh.
I think for sure that's what took them so long, and Rogue
One caught them off guard. They were like, "Whoa, we have this this thing on our hands. We can totally do whatever we want." Rogue One was the surprise hit that sort of threw them off when Han Solo didn't get that reaction.
Yeah, well, both The Force Awakens and Rogue One performed way better than anyone thought they were going to, and so that's that's going to buoy your spirit. And Bob Iger's job is to push the corporation to the limit to make as much money building new parks, new lands, all that stuff. So you sort of you know, it was the wrong decision, but also I understand him like going, hey, if we do, you know, 3 of these every 2 years, that's going to be some pretty sweet coin. Maybe not, you know, understanding the culture of how people see that films. He's got a lot of stuff to, you know about, and we're experts about one tiny slice. But I did appreciate that he threw himself under the bus for that timing thing, because I think, you know, Solo's biggest hurdle was that 5-month timing, because, you know, that like dominoed the marketing and everything around it, as well as the, you know, the short amount of time for, you know, the enthusiasm to build up. Here's an interesting thing. So the two, and some people are it's gonna drive them crazy. It's a shame. It's a shame. The two sort of big incidents in the production of Solo, that sort of the bumps in the road, was like Chris Miller and Phil Lord, yeah, and the timing. Do you think they're the two biggest bumps in the road, Hawes?
Oh yeah, I would say so. You know, that Phil Lord Christopher Miller thing really blew up, like way more so than the Rogue One stuff. Granted, I think it was a much bigger deal than the Rogue One stuff.
Well, the Rogue One was
reshooting the whole moon.
Yeah, and the Rogue One was, they sort of swept a lot of that under the carpet with, you know, who they were bringing in.
You know, what's weird with Disney owning Star Wars is when Disney has to compete with itself. You know what I mean? So, you know, if they brought it out this December, they have movies of their own that they would be competing with. If they brought it out when they brought it out in May, they're competing with Infinity War. Like, I think that's sort of a weird spot we're in with Disney owning Star Wars, is that, like, at some point, Star Wars is competing against movies that its parent company are also putting out, you know? And Infinity War, Deadpool 2, like, some of those movies that came out around Solo, that definitely didn't help.
Yeah, well, Infinity War's, you know, the Force Awakens of Marvel, really. That's like that same sort of like mega event. But this is what I find curious. Like, everyone's, you know, photoshopping their angry photos of Kathleen Kennedy for their YouTube thumbnails. But Iger's taken the hit for the timing. And if you remember, and I remember because I was there, when Phil Lord and Christopher Miller got brought out on stage at Star Wars Celebration London, one of the, you know, the jokes of the panel was how hard Lawrence Kasdan had to fight to get those guys to direct the film. So it does seem on paper like the people around Kathleen Kennedy are making some, whether above or below her pay scale, are forcing the issue in the wrong direction on those two things. What do you make of that observation, Hawes?
Yeah, that panel from Celebration London is a interesting little snapshot of Star Wars history. It's almost like, to use once again a Marvel reference, like Thanos snapped his fingers and thing because they sure were real happy and excited. And then
the vibe in that room was joy.
What's interesting is, you know, and we don't know for sure how true this is, but apparently, you know, you said Larry Kasdan was talking about how hard they fought to get those guys. But, you know, some of the word that came out was that it ended up being Kasdan that had a huge problem with what they were doing on the movie.
Yeah, careful what you wish for, Hawes. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I actually have a question about that, guys. I'm sorry, I'm still on the line here. The 52 comments that came from John Kasdan, I mean, he like gave acknowledgement to where like Lord Miller chimed in on the script, and like he like gave credit where credit was due. Like, do you guys think that's just him like being like diplomatic, playing it cool, and being like, okay, this movie wasn't that well received, let me
now just like put the record straight. And he said he butted heads a little bit with his own father. But do you think that like that whole story about like him butting heads with John Kasdan, I'm sorry, Larry Kasdan, at the end of the day was true, or do you think that was all kind of a load of bull given the latest updates?
You know, that's a good question, and that's something I've found that people with Star Wars sometimes take for granted. You know, like when the rumor broke that, say, James Mangold was going to direct Boba Fett. You know, that was never announced by Star Wars, but you'll hear people reference it as if it was officially announced. It came out in the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, which typically those are very good sources, but it was never officially announced. So you can't necessarily take that as 100% truth. And I think you got to do the same thing with a lot of like the solo director stuff. You know, we never got word that that's officially what happened, so we don't really know for sure.
Hey, we are going to have to wrap
point,
things
Aaron.
up. Sorry, Aaron. We're just going to wrap things up. But thanks so much for your call, Aaron. And make sure you're not a stranger in the future, mate.
Not a problem, man. Love you guys.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Alrighty. Sorry to the people we didn't have time for to fit in, but it is Friday night and people have got stuff to do after the show. I've got to go see some acquaintances and be pleasurable. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's Friday night. I'm going to go be social. Hawes. Now, Hawes Burkhardt, you are the host of two of my favorite Star Wars podcasts on the internet, which is the best place to find podcasts I have found. Tell the good people of the internet what's going on there.
So, yeah, you can catch me and Johnny Grasso and Mike Pappas on Rogue One, a Star Wars podcast for winners. That comes out every Thursday. And you catch me and my buddy Will on Blue Harvest, and that comes out every Saturday. Nice.
So tomorrow morning, I'll be, as I do pretty much every Saturday, do my chores around town while listening to Hawes and Will. And
Hey.
Yeah. So the next episode of this will be Tuesday, the same time. So that's if you're in the West Coast, that's 5 p.m. East Coast is 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning in Australia, or on the east coast of Australia. And of course, if you want to hear more of me and Hawes, and you'll be able to see Hawes on that version, the Star Wars You Buy podcast, if you want to become a Patreon on either of our Patrons, it is $3. And Hawes does a bunch of other really fun shows. He does a role-playing game, the Blue Harvest Adventures, there's a cooking show, there's the Solo Hawes show, and over on the Steele Wars podcast Patreon feed, we've got a new Robbo report up, and coming up any second now, I'm just waiting for the download to hit me, but Randy Lagudice, Jason Ward, and I did a really fun late night solo commentary. So that will be up for patrons on the $3 tier in the next couple of days. And also, if you're at $1 Patreon level, you get all that, as well as I put you don't get all that, but as part of the $3, at the $1 level, you get these news shows, which are normally just on YouTube, but I put the audio ones on there. And I found a way to get really good quality audio for those versions, because sometimes the YouTube one can be a little bit choppy. So I hope people appreciate the upgrade in quality. Hawes. And where can the good people of the internet follow you on Twitter, Hawes Burkhardt?
At Blue Harvest Pod on Twitter.
Very, very nice. Well, I look forward to seeing everyone. I think we'll definitely be on Tuesday night and possibly next Friday, or I might have a baby by then, and then there'll be a slight jolt in uploads. Hawes, it's uncharted territory going on right here. And I have been firmly banned by my wife from making that Uber noise at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So let's see if I can get away with that. But thanks so much for everyone listening in. I really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the little like thing and hit the bell so you get alerts next time we do one, and subscribe. Do all those things that the excited teenagers tell you to do at the end of the videos. But for me this time, do it where it counts. Thank you guys so much, and may that force be with you. Thanks, Hawes.
No problem, buddy.